the eighth and the ninth step, and I don't want to get ahead of the eighth step, is, truly when you receive that freedom in AA, and they teach us about the promises come after the ninth step. And truly, as the promises state, I have known a new freedom and a new happiness. And what that suggests to us is that what we thought was freedom wasn't freedom. And and we've learned about freedom, that freedom isn't free. And it's truly an honor to have so much talent in the house. I've never, we have, it's just, even on Sunday, these ladies should be singing on Sunday, and they will be singing on Sunday, but, we've been blessed by Tyler's songs on Tuesday about recovery and different things, and it's truly an honor, again, and as we've been talking over the last several weeks about character. Now, talent without character is wasted. And the key is that we learn character, because if you're anything like me, which you are, our talent takes us in places that our character can't sustain us. And there is so much talent in this room. And my small group last week, I got a new view on potential. One of the brothers from SV1 was talking, and as you often hear me reference, when it was okay when I was 13, when they told me I had potential, and then I'd fall on my face, and they told me at 20 I got potential, and in my late 20s I got potential, in my mid-30s I got potential, and what I often say is, I'm sick of people telling me that I got potential, but this brother shed some new light on that idea on me. He says, I'm lucky I still got potential. Because there's some people that don't even have potential. Some people that didn't make it out of the horror of addiction. Some people that people won't even give another chance to. Some people that are incarcerated, that have to wait years to reach their potential. And not that they can't while they're incarcerated. Some people in a self-made prison in between their two ears that can't even see the potential. I really loved what he said. And that's what is so awesome about the we of this program, is there is so much wisdom in this house. There is so much discernment and experience in this house. And the devil wants you to keep your mouth shut, but I'm telling you, anything that's kept in the dark dies in the light of exposure. And that's why we talk about the fifth step, admitting to God, yourself, and another human being the exact natures of your wrongs. But just to do a quick recap of the steps, God had given me a vision of this circle. And in 10 years of working with men and women in recovery, and even people working with me, this visual came to mind. And we know what the first step says, that we admitted that we were powerless and their lives had become unmanageable. We got 50 plus people here that aren't even in recovery, and they can relate to that step. You're powerless over people, places, and things. I think so often that the serenity prayer is underutilized, where we don't grant God the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's how you really deal with your powerlessness. I think all of us are control freaks. And the second step says we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Not might, not would maybe restore us to sanity, could restore us to sanity. As that song referenced, made a decision to turn, and a we is in front of all these steps. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand Him. See, I needed to, give me a hug, girl, good to see you. I needed to understand that I can't do this by myself. I need to sometimes get to know God through the God in other people. What's up, Andrew? And that's important to me. And I didn't get here by myself. See, so many times I see people come and go out of this program, and they take credit like they made all these decisions by themselves. They got sober by themselves, and they fail to realize that you cannot keep what you have unless you give it away. The fourth step suggests made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Quit taking everybody else's inventory. Take an inventory of yourself. Within that step, you're dealing with resentments and fears and sexual conduct and different things, depending on what program you're working. But it's critical then, it says, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. The key is this, that we've got to get exact. Like I said, if you go to the bar, you're not going to sit there and ponder what type of drink you're going to order. You know exactly what you're going to order. You go to the dope man, you're not going to ponder if you get a 20 bag, a 100 bag. You know exactly what you're going after. We need to learn to get exact in our recovery, the exact nature of our wrongs. As we studied that step out of the 12 and 12 out of the NA text, what we learned was that sometimes in order for me to get honest with myself, I had to get honest with somebody else because I didn't know what honesty meant. So the fifth step was critical for me because I learned honesty about being enough transparency and vulnerability to really get what God is wanting, because I didn't know what honesty is. That's why How It Works suggests rigorous honesty. I thought that used to mean that I couldn't lie to you. Well, if I'm honest with myself, there's chances are I'm going to be honest with you. And if I can lie to you, I can lie to me. So that's why we as individuals play such a critical role. Then over the last 2 weeks, we've been hitting character real hard. We were entirely ready. You hear it said in the recovery circles, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was sick of me. I was sick of my garbage. I was sick of carrying that stuff around, so we became entirely ready to have God remove my defects of character. See, I tried to be a good person. I tried not to lie, but I needed God to help me with those defects of character. Last week, with the vision of a shortcoming, what I continuously said is we humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. And I began to teach on if you come up short, which we often do in our statements and our recovery and what we say we're going to do, if we come up short, our short is coming. Because the Bible says that you reap what you sow. So I was always the guy that came up short because of my character defects. I'd tell you I was going to do something, and what does AA teach us? Half measures avail as nothing. I'd go halfway there, and I'd get nothing. Because I came up short. But in my mind, because of my character defects, in my inability to be honest with myself, in me taking control of the wheel and not turning it over to God, I didn't know what those things were. And as you're learning, and if you're actually reading what I'm teaching, God puts these tools in the earth for a reason. You're learning that if you are truly doing the steps, and I want to just tell you, it's hard to do them as quick as we're doing week after week. I'm just giving you exposure. Some of you are actually doing it, but this will give you a taste that this does work. So as I had this visual, when it comes in, and the 1,000+ people that I've worked with in 10 years, what I've seen in people is, I can work with people at step one. At step one, as Horvath has taught me, you don't know how much you need God until God is all you got. As Horvath has taught me, it's easy to give God everything when you don't have nothing. So I've learned that I can mentor men and women that, as a pastor, we don't suggest the crossover in the program, but as a pastor, I have to do it. I'm even very careful about that. But the key is this, that when somebody's at a step one, they are very receptive. They will listen. They are humble. But after that, if you look at the circle, I look at these 12 circles as the steps. So, here, you can mentor a guy. Even when they're coming to believe, they'll still listen to you. Even when they think they made a decision, they'll still listen to you. A lot of us start our fourth step, but if you look at the human being in the center of the circle, once you start making it about them, they don't want to deal with it. So the fifth step is what makes it about them. They have to get real. Even when they're doing the fourth, it's still internal stuff. The fifth step is when they really got to admit to themselves, to God, another human being, the exact nature wrong. But what I've learned in the last several years, I run into more opposition from people that don't work 7 to 12. It's like they get stuck at 4. They won't take direction. They won't take correction. Why can't they do that? Because they think their problem is drugs, alcohol, or gambling. That's not the problem. It's a defective character problem. It's a shortcoming. It's a resentment problem. It's a fear problem. And it's a lack of forgiveness problem. So when somebody experiences forgiveness, other than that, guys, you all love me when I tell you how great you are. But as soon as I cross the line to correct you, you don't love me no more. And the reason why that is because up until now, and I'm putting myself in this equation, that as long as you stayed at the surface level with me, I was okay with you. But if you got deep with me, I wasn't going to be around you. And that's what steps 7 through 12 do. They get deep. They get deep. You're asking God, and when you became willing to write a list, that means that you for the second time, and really the third, maybe the fourth time, I would say the fifth time, through step 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8, now you're looking at yourself. But a lot of people in recovery, and the reason why I had to go through 11 treatments is as soon as somebody wanted to look at me, I didn't know how to dig deep. The only thing I knew is how to stay at a surface level. All of us are great people. It baffles people to say, how are they such an addict? They're such a nice person. I think addicts and alcoholics are some of the greatest people on the earth, but if you don't think you're a nice person, you'll never be a nice person. And I loved what I was teaching on Sunday is the importance of your name. See, what do people think about when they think about you? Are you willing to work on it? So, I mean, I don't even know if I will mentor anybody anymore unless they're in this zone because they can't be corrected. They take correction as rejection. And the key is, I was at 2 hotel rooms this weekend. I'll bring them out of the hotel rooms. But what happens after the hotel room? Where do they go? Where do they go? Are they willing to continue to get to the core of who they are? The core of who you are, you will find in step 12. After you have a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps. But what you think is a spiritual awakening, I don't think it is. Just like the promises say, we will know a new freedom and a new happiness. That means you've never had this freedom before. What you thought was happiness was not happiness. So the 8th step, but what I was talking about on the importance of your name, it says, if you must choose. That means each and every one of us have a choice. There's no one that has gone too far down the road in their addiction that isn't capable of recovering. And it says it here in Proverbs 22:1. If you must choose to take a good name rather than good riches. Now, when I want to equate this to recovery, what I thought would restore my name is if I got back everything I lost. If you saw me get my family back, and we know that it's an inside job. See, but nobody ever wants to go inside themselves through the rest of these steps that we're in right now. They just stay on the verge of admitting they're powerless, and they kind of believe they have to turn their will and their life over to the care of God. But what it's saying here, and I see it, it's here tonight, is the fact that people think the restoration of their name, I think there's 2 different reasons why God puts us in the, my parents are here tonight. Now, they are not equipped to know what an addict thinks like. Okay? So I can snow them over all day, every day. So they may think that my name's restored because I'm going to work every day, because I look better and I don't weigh 90 pounds anymore. But you might be able to fool your loved ones, but you ain't going to fool those in your recovery circle. Because those in your recovery circle are just like you. So you may think your name is restored, and your family may think you're okay. I would ask those who God has called to look at you in a loving manner, the core of you. And so many of us are looking at it. It says, rather than great riches, again, we try to get back to what we lost. I went through that series of difference between being buried and planted. If God puts you here and you're buried with your circumstances, you're going to do everything in your power to work on getting back what you lost, and you're not going to work on you. But if you're planted, you're going to work on you. And it says, for to be held in loving esteem. What type of weight does your name hold? 10 years ago, I couldn't even open a checking account. 10 years ago, my parents had to pay my first month's rent at a sober house. My name meant addict. My name represented loser. My name represented 11-time treatment failures. We know in the book of Revelation that it says that God will give you a new name with white stone that you can receive the hidden manna. But what is it says? For to be held in loving esteem. What is your name held on? And then it goes on to say, it's better than silver or gold. You can't take what you just got back that you lost with you when you die. The first thing that happens to you as a human being is you get named. And what you're remembered by is not your riches. It's your love. The Bible says that you will know Christians by their love, not by how much money they got. We are remembered by our name, and our name is all we really have. If you go to a tombstone, they don't have the bank account information there. They have their name, when they were born and when they died, their name. How important is your name to you? And do you believe that God can restore it? I mean, in my corporate world, when I look at the roster of men and women that are working in the field, I know by their name who's going to do the job. I know by their name who's going to complain. When I look at the church roster, I know who's going to show up for the missions events. I know who's going to deliver, and I know who's not going to deliver. See, sometimes, when people look at your name, what do they think about? Can they count on your name? Now, without working the steps, they could never count on my name. I wasn't even here long enough for them to count on it. And when I was here, so getting to the core of you and what you really are, and that's what the 8th step is really talking about. It says, made a list of all persons we have harmed. Do we know the extent of the harm we caused? I don't think I even know about to the extent of it. But it says right here, it says all the persons, not just the people that we think we harmed, and I'll get more into it, and became willing. Now the key is, where a lot of us get stuck, is that we're so afraid of making the amends, we don't even do the 8th step. We don't write down through willingness. What the 8th step is saying is that we need to be willing, became willing. So that tells me that, we're probably not too willing people to begin with. The only time we're willing is when we're at step 1, when we just fell on our face. So it says, became willing to make amends to them all. There that word all is again. That word all scares me. You mean all the people in 20 years of addiction that I harmed? I can't even remember all those people. And that's why this literature is so important, because it says in the 12 and 12, steps 8 and 9 are concerned with personal relations. Now, I'm not good at relationships. My relationships were screwed up because I was in them. And the reason why I couldn't establish a relationship with God, because I clearly wasn't good at relationships. But that's what step 8 and 9 is. It's about personal relationships. Well, the most important personal relationship we should have is with God. And what I found about God is my relationship with Him is okay. My relationship with my wife is okay. My relationship with my daughter is okay. My relationship with you is okay. But when my relationship with Him isn't okay, my other relationship suffers. But that was difficult for me because I wasn't good at relationships. I wasn't good at honesty. I was good at coming up short. I would tell you what you wanted to hear. I didn't ever tell you the full truth. I told you just enough to get away from me. And when it says, first we took a look backward and tried to discover that where we were at fault. But a lot of us like to blame. But that's not what this step is saying. It's saying, next we make a vigorous attempt, it's not just an attempt, a vigorous attempt to repair the damage we've done. And third, having thus cleansed away the debris of our past. What an order. That's how it works. Says, what an order. I can't go through with this. That's how we all feel. And then we get stuck, like the song said, like Jamie testified. We consider how our newfound knowledge of ourselves. I didn't like what I found out about me. When I had to truly get to the core of me by working a 4th step, I didn't realize how angry I really was. I didn't realize how fearful I really was. But if you don't own it, it will continue to own you. If you don't deal with it, it will deal with you. And what it's saying here is so profound because it's right on the money. It's right on the money that, I don't even know how this is possible. But it says newfound knowledge about ourselves. We need to develop the best possible relations with every human being, even the ones I don't like. But that's what this step is calling for, that we can develop possible relations with every human being we know. It says, learning how to live is the greatest peace, partnership, and brotherhood with all men and women. Of whatever description is the moving and fascinating adventure. See, people never cease to amaze me. One thing you can't count on is counting on something. And what it's saying here is so true that, like Steve says, every morning's an adventure. He went a little lighter, this medallion, but what he used to call us people. But it says a fascinating adventure. I mean, recovery is exciting. It's exciting to me. I mean, what was exciting about peeping out the window? What was exciting about throwing up in the toilet? What was exciting about you going to the ATM at the casino and it said 0? Kareem and I used to talk about doing this. Kareem's a real close friend of mine. And what I used to do back in the day before the banks were smart enough for people like me, I'd blow in the envelope and told the bank through the ATM there, I don't want to give you any ideas. They can't do it anymore. $500 deposit, and then I took some money out. There was nothing in that envelope. And like they weren't going to come ask me what happened. But because of my defective character, in what it's saying here, it's so true. It says, learning how to live. I had to learn how to live. And what it's, every AA has found that he can have little headway in this new adventure of living until he first backtracks. We don't like to backtrack. We just want to hit the start over. What's gone is gone. I don't have to go back there. That don't work. It ain't gone. It's still in you. It's still in you. And what it says, until he first backtracks and really makes an accurate and unsparing survey of the human wreckage he has left in his wake. I was a tidal wave of chaos. I was a tidal wave of addiction. I was a tidal wave of lies and manipulation. I had to own that about me through working the steps. It says, why we cried should be bygones be bygones. See, and that's what often gets me about people in recovery. They wanted to, I used to think this way. Bygones are, I don't care that I, didn't do what I was going to say to do and took all the money and spent it on crack. I'm sober now. You should love me. Let bygones be bygones. But we're the type of people that we expect bygones to be bygones, but then we hold grudges over people. The very thing we expect from people, we do ourselves. And that's what the literature is saying here. It says, let bygones be bygones. Why do we have to think of these people at all? I'd rather not think of them. That's what I felt. That's why it's in here. These were some of the ways which fear conspired with pride to hinder our making a list of all the people we had harmed. This attitude, of course, is the end of purposeful forgetting. See, have you tried to forget something and at the worst time it comes back to memory? You could be going into a job interview in your new life. I'm sober, I look good, I got $10 in my pocket, walking in there with all confidence. All of a sudden, oh my God, I remember the time I robbed that place and left my kid in the car when I was smoking crack. Boom. It happens. It happens. At the worst time, the enemy, see, if you don't expose the enemy's going to expose you. And he ain't going to do it when you expect it. He's going to do it when he knows he can get you, and that's what it's saying. I tried to purposely forget. It don't work that way. I tried to purposely be good. It don't work. That's why God has to help us. It is the attitude which we can only be changed by a deep and honest search of our motives and actions. Now, I didn't know how to get deep. I just stayed out here. Anytime you came close to me, trying to pry at me, what's really going on, Jeff, I pushed you out. I pushed you out. And that's what it's suggesting here, that we've got to get deep about our motives and actions. Such gross misbehavior. Boy, I did some gross misbehavior that I'd rather not talk about now that I'm sober. What's the sense of me talking about that? I'd rather look the other way. But that's not what the step says. It says we've got to look at this stuff so it doesn't continue to look at us. What you're not willing to look at will look at you. And truly it says, it means a full catalog of the harms we did. Let us think of some subtle ones. Now, if you're anything like me, I can deal with the big bombs that go off in my life, but those little irritants really get to me. The little irritants, the little agitations like I had all day, the subtle ones which can sometimes be quite damaging. Suppose that our family lives we happen to be miserably irresponsible, callous, and cold. Some of us really don't need to be around certain people for a little bit. Certain people can bring the worst out in you. Until you get to this step when you've got to go to the 9th step and talk to them, you might want to keep a distance. Suppose that we're irritable, critical, impatient, and humorless. Suppose to lavish attention upon one member of the family and neglect the other. I see it all the time in recovery circles. They get these cliques, and then a new person comes on board and they don't even welcome them in. God, what did it feel like when you weren't welcomed in? That didn't feel good for me. Because I always thought I was the odd man out anyway. I couldn't get connected to anything. So God really wants us to grab those people, and God will do for you what you do for others. And what it says here is what happens when we wallow in depression. Now, I mean, at the end of the day, I think all of us are bipolar. I mean, we have extreme. I am. There ain't nothing wrong with taking medication. Don't be ashamed of that. Thank God that he put the medication on earth for you to take. I mean, yeah, I pray, I do all this stuff, but I mean, I was high anxiety and I still am, in different things. Depression, oh yeah, don't think that you can solve your problems by getting your life together. My life has never been more together, and that cloud still comes over me. I'm like, what's going on? And what it's saying here is self-pity oozing from every pore to inflict upon those about us. I mean, it's like when you go to somebody and you talk to them that's got self-pity, they're attentively listening for something that you're going to say that's going to make them feel sorry for themselves. When they're not really listening to a word you are saying. And what it says is so important. In NA, it works how and why. In the previous steps, we began to make peace. God calls us to be peacemakers with our higher power and with ourselves. In the 8th step, we begin the process of making peace with others. Willingness is critical. By acting on our character defects, we inflicted harm on ourselves and those around us. Again, when you get to the 8th step, you should have already identified what your defects of character are. So when they arise, you can be aware of what they are, and they don't have to manifest. I mean, I wish that God, and maybe he's done it for you, but when I asked him to remove my defects, it just wasn't done. I still got defects of character. But I know a solution for them. God. I know a solution for them, the 10th step. And what it's saying here is so true because it's saying we begin the process of making peace with others. By acting on our character defects, we inflicted harm on ourselves. Who's your worst enemy? You are. You're your worst enemy. Nobody has to be mean to you. You're already mean to yourself. I met with a friend of mine recently that's down on himself, and I said, the day that I believe in you, God believes in you, but you don't believe in you. You got to start believing in you. And that's what God does for us. It says we begin the process of making peace with others by acting on those characters. In the 7th step, we ask our higher power to remove our shortcomings. Now you're looking at the progression of the steps. However, in order to gain true freedom from our defects, we need to accept responsibility. How many of us haven't accepted responsibility of what we've done? That's not recovery. You need to accept what you did. And that's your starting point. Accept responsibility for them. We need to do whatever it is to repair the harm we've done. And it's so important. It says our objective to begin clearing away the damage we've done so that we can continue on our spiritual awakening. See, the awakening's in step 12. Now, you might get awakenings along the way. You might get moments of clarity. You might get peace. Most likely you will. But I want to be heading, because I know too much about the 12 steps to doubt them. I've seen too many people get spiritual awakenings. If you work it, it'll work you. And I needed to be worked, but I didn't know what work was. Because I'm a half-measure type of guy. I'm a strong starter. I take shortcuts and I learn they're nothing but setbacks. And what we learn here is so important, and so many people don't read this literature. That's why I took the time to print it and have you take it with you. God put this on the planet for us. But what it's saying here is so true. Our shame and remorse over our past actions is so deep that our recollections can cause us an unbearable guilt. Well, what happens when you have one unbearable guilt? You drink, you get high, you act out, sexually, gambling, whatever it is. Whatever you can do to not feel what you're feeling. That's what we do. And some of us do it in our recovery. We do some behavior to, not deal with ourselves. And it says, we want to be free of such guilt. We begin making a list of the people we had harmed. The 8th step is only making a list of all the people. You don't have to worry about making the amends. Don't get ahead of the process. Just write down the list. It says most of us fairly vivid imaginations. I mean, some of the stuff I've done is still a movie in my head. Sometimes I dream about it. Something that happened 20 years ago. I can drive down 494 and look at a hotel room, and it's like I was there that day. Why do we remember the wrong things and forget the right things? Why is that? So, I mean, it's so important that what this literature is saying is right on the money. And it says, most of us have fairly vivid imaginations, but this is not the time to get ahead of ourselves. We must avoid projections. I was talking to my friend that had all this going on, and I said, you're projecting. You don't even know how it's going to happen, and whatever's going to happen is not going to be as bad as you thought it would be. We like to project things, either negative or positive, about actually making our amends. You know, before you make an amends, you tell yourself, I know how they're going to react. Why should I even do it? It ain't about how they react. It's about how you react. That goes back to step 1. You're powerless over how they react. And I'm not going to get ahead of myself into step 9, but what it's saying here is so true. It says, at this point, making a list and become willing to make amends are your only concerns. Working the previous step has prepared you for your willingness. We need to be... See, some of us leave treatment and we go right to step 9. I mean, that don't work. All that does is create more frustration later when you repeat the same mistakes to them that you already said you're sorry for. And I'll get to that in a minute, but what it's saying here is the same honesty and courage we called upon, we wrote in our inventory. See, if you took a shortcut in your 4th step, you're going to take a shortcut in your 8th step, and all the steps are a shortcut, and it'll lead to a setback. And if you're anything like me, the setbacks that guys like me get are not pretty. And it says, making our amends list, we are practicing these principles all along, quite familiar with them. See, the steps gives us an opportunity to establish new habits, to establish a new level of faith, like it's saying here. It says the 8th step is simply a continuation of our efforts to find freedom or applying spiritual principles. See, you have to find freedom. Freedom doesn't find you. You have to search for freedom. My mom, if somebody posted on Facebook, you know, God will give you deliverance, but deliverance is an opportunity for freedom. I mean, how many times have you been delivered from drinking and drank? Again, you weren't delivered. God delivered you, but you didn't do the work to get delivered. There's a difference between the word deliver and delivered. Delivered is done. If I'm delivering a package, it hasn't got to the destination yet. But once I delivered it, it's done. And it's so important to realize that, and we want to grasp it. We must let go of resentments. All of us like to hold on to those and focus on our part in the conflict. We won't get better, be able to live a spiritual life when we're seeking if we are still in the self-obsession. We let go of our expectations. The higher your expectation, the lower your serenity. You get what you... I don't really expect much from people that are not here anymore. I almost expect that they're going to disappoint. And life is full of disappointments. We don't like disappointments, but we were one big disappointment. The people that don't like to be disappointed, disappoint. See, we've got to change one thing, that's everything. And it's so important. It says our idea of being a victim must go. You will never have victory as a victim. And if you're a victim, there'll be many victims. Everybody that crosses your path will be a victim of you. And this is the truth, and the truth hurts, and I'm speaking about me. It says, in the 8th step, we're not concerned of what others have done to us. Quit worrying about what other people have done to you. That's not what this step is about. We are concerned only with accepting responsibility for what we have done to others. We find people we've wounded with our dishonesty, the people that we stole from and cheated, the people that we were receiving the end of our wrongs. We also take note of how we harm society as a whole and add to that list. We have drained community resources, exhibited offensive behavior in the public, or refused to contribute to the general. It just drives me nuts to somebody that finally gets a job and then complains to me about being taxed when they just spent $80,000 on a Rule 25. It's like, the victim mentality. In addition to understanding that our harm means, we also need to understand what making amends means. The step does not mean we became willing to say we're sorry, although we might be part of our amends. Most of the people we hurt have probably heard us say, I'm sorry enough to last a lifetime. In truth, we are becoming willing to do anything possible to repair the damage we've done, particularly by changing our behavior. Simply accepting the harm we've caused increases our humility. which is when you're humble, God will exalt you. Be truly sorry of the clear indication that our self-centeredness has diminished, willing to go to any lengths to change. But people that only say here, they go, the step one, they're willing to go to any lengths, but that's it. As soon as they get back what they lost, which thinks there's going to be credibility to their name, they just damage their name later on. And it's so important that we grasp this. And what it's saying is so true. It says, in truth, becoming willing to do anything possible to repair the damage we've done. Simply accepting the harm we cause increases humility. By truly sorry is a clear indication that our self-centered is diminished. Willing to go to any lengths to change, we are newly inspired. Some of our willingness will come out of simply writing out our list. Ask God for willingness. The Bible says, ask God for willingness that will sustain you. When do we fail? When we lose our willingness. Again, it's easy to give God everything when you got nothing. Try being sober for a couple years. Try having a great job. Try having a blessed wife. Try being blessed beyond the curse and still give God something. That's when he really blesses you. When you give him time that you don't have. When I first got sober, all I had was time. It was easy to give it to him. But when I work 60 hours a week and have to prepare this message, and have to answer the phone at 2 in the morning, when I have to prepare a sermon, when I have to lead a church of 300, I ain't got time. But when you give God time, when you ain't got time, he blesses you. Don't be patting yourself on the back. Don't be patting yourself when you're giving God time. See, it's like those guys when I go speak at treatment centers. They say, well, I'm not court-ordered like him. I'm like, are you kidding me, dude? You've been to 15 treatments and you're boasting that you're not court-ordered? You're not court-ordered because they haven't caught you yet. We've got to learn to know ourselves so we can see ourselves coming. And it's so important what it's saying here. It says praying for willingness. We need to ask God for willingness because it's not going to come easily. Takes our relationship with God and understanding a step further, it says. A step further. A step further into the circle of you. A step further to a spiritual awakening. Your willingness after doing step 7 should be more in doing step 8 because God, the more you seek him, the more he gives you. But the more he gives you, the harder it gets sometimes. My life is hard. My life is hard, but it's easy with him. I forget what hard was. Trying to remember what I lied about. Didn't know if they were going to take me to jail when I failed that UA. Didn't know if I could see the kids this weekend because crack was more important to me. Didn't know if I was going to get another breath in my lung because I just shot some dope. See, ask Kareem. I took him out on my shoulder. Right to detox. He helped me when I was down. That's what people do. Now he owns his own place. Got a great job because he does the deal. He does the deal. Do the deal, and the deal will do you. And it's so important that we grasp this. As it's saying, here it says the 7th step, we further our personal relationship with God. God wants more. That's why it says in step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve your conscious contact with God. It's always about improving. You can't rest on your laurels. You can't get high off of yesterday's dope. You got to go get new dope. That's why the big book says a daily reprieve contingent on your spiritual condition. That's what the Bible says. Deny yourself on a daily. That's why the program says it's a day at a time. All we have to concern ourselves with a day. He ain't going to boast on his 14 years. He's going to say, I've been sober since 7 this morning. Because that's all he's been sober. It's the bottom line. It's a simple program for complicated people. It says, now this is the key right here. If you ever lose this fact, you will fall. The higher power is working in our lives, preparing us for service to others. He's not preparing you to get your family back. He's not preparing you to get your job back and your finances back and beat those legal charges. He's preparing you for service to others. That's it. That's why he saved you. That's why he pulled you out of the pit. To serve others. That's it. But you can't serve others when you're all caught up about yourself. You get easily offended. It's all about you. You can't take correction. You want to be in it to win it. You got to learn how to look at yourself and get to the core of you. Because when you find the core of you, it's going to be good. This ain't so good out here. But when you like an onion, peel these layers back, at the core of you is precious. At the core of you is champion. At the core of you is world changer. At the core of you is overcomer. At the core of you is giver. It says we're developing the ability to choose spiritual principles. It's not about how you feel. It has nothing to do with how you feel. Even though none of us, we have to learn how to feel. But there's, for my first couple of years, I had a busy day. I don't feel like going to Tuesday. It ain't about how I feel. I don't feel like reading my Bible. It ain't about how I feel. I don't feel like being honest with my wife. It ain't about how I feel. I don't feel like dealing with you today. It ain't about how I feel. It's about how God feels. I'm grateful that somebody took a chance on me. The ability to choose. I remember when I couldn't choose. I remember when the dope was choosing for me. I thank God that I have enough clarity today to choose spiritual principles. And that's what the steps have done for me. Our character defects to recover over addiction. NA basic text. Step 8 is a test of our newfound humility. Our purpose is to achieve freedom from the guilt that we have once carried. Some of us are carrying too much. We're not designed to carry guilt. That's why the Bible says there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. That's why the Bible says you're forgiven as far as the east to the west. You're not made to carry guilt. God didn't make you to carry guilt. You can't sustain the weight of your guilt and your shame. He takes it from you, but you won't give it to him because we don't get beyond the surface. This is when the guilt is removed. And it's so important. That's why these texts are so critical. We want to look at the world in the eye. I love it. My dad will testify to this. When the majority of you come in here, you can't look anybody in the eye, but then the light bulb goes on, you start looking people in the eye. You ain't got nothing to be shamed about. God's carrying your shame. Quit trying to carry something that God intended himself to carry. Because you'll always be weighed down, and that's what it's saying. Look the world in the eye, neither aggressively nor fear. The 8th step is not easy. It demands a new kind of honesty about the relations with other people. The 8th step starts the process of forgiveness. We forgive others. Possibly we are forgiven, and finally we forgive ourselves and learn how to live. See, there's people that after all these years still haven't forgiven me. That didn't stop my experience of forgiveness. I don't carry condemnation. I don't carry guilt. God carries it for me. You can't make anybody forgive you from all the damage you've done. You have to forgive them in order to experience forgiveness. And that's what the 8th step is all about, is rewriting that list. And it's so important. It says ourselves and learn how to live in the world. We got to learn how to live. By the time we reach this step, we have become ready to understand rather than be understood. I met with one of my leaders in the church recently. We had a great talk, and I asked him flat out, I said, are you mature enough for me to mentor you? They taught me in hockey when I made the junior varsity when I was still in junior high, don't expect a pat on the back every time you get off the ice. Your performance is expected. And this brother was telling me, he's a leader, and he says, I want to understand the people I'm leading, and I want them to understand me. I said, let me correct you on that. It's very rare on a person that you're leading. They won't understand you. They're not mature enough to understand you. Your job is to understand them in order to lead them. If you get somebody that understands you as a leader, that's a plus. I got them in the church. It's an awesome feeling, but it's not a common feeling. See, we don't have to worry about being understood, the most misunderstood people. We can live and let live easier, and we know the areas which we owe amends. It seems hard now, but once we've done it, we will wonder why we did wait so long ago. We must separate what is done to us from what we did to others. We cut away our justifications and our ideas of being a victim. We often feel that we have harmed ourselves, yet we usually list ourselves last. See, every program's got a different philosophy on this. You got to be on your amends list. You have to learn how to forgive yourself. But here's the kicker of learning how to forgive yourself. It's in the Bible, Mark 11:25. And when you stand praying, if you hold anything against anybody, forgive them, so that your Father in heaven may forgive you. If you haven't experienced forgiveness, it's because you haven't forgiven people. That's it. You hold the cards to experiencing forgiveness. It ain't God. He's already done it. You have to forgive in order to be forgiven. Bottom line, 10-minute break. I love you.